Okay, so I have these organized from most expensive to least expensive. So most expensive is on the left and least expensive is on the right. So this is the Littmann Cardiology. So I think it's the Littmann 4. That's in the 200s range. This one is the Littmann 3. It's specifically the satin finish tubing, so that's a little more expensive. I think it's $134 after tax. It depends on where you buy it from. Some places are actually a little cheaper and offer free engraving. So I actually think I probably got this for about $124. The other Littmann 3s that don't have the satin finish, they're a little cheaper. They're close to $100. This is the MDF. I believe this one's the 777. Also in the $100 range. So these two are about the same price range. This is the Littmann Lightweight. It's 60-ish, in the 60s. And then this is the MDF. I actually don't, I'm gonna have to double check. I'll probably put it in a caption. This is the cheapest one that MDF offers. So it's $34, I believe, depending on what color you get. Okay, so we'll start off with the Littmann Cardiology IV. So I have to say there is a noticeable difference. Some people say that they don't notice a difference. There's definitely a noticeable difference, especially the longer that you spend in nursing school and listening to hearts and listening to lungs. It for sure is a noticeable difference. It also has a noticeable cost difference. So with that being said, yes, I do love mine, and I keep it in my bag for if I'm going to end up listening to something that maybe I do think maybe there is a murmur or there is an adventitious sound or I do hear crackles in the lungs, then if I wanted to, would pull this out and I could hear a little bit better. I do love it, but I don't feel that it's necessary to get through school. You definitely can do it with a cheaper stethoscope for sure, but I would never, if you do have the funds to pay for it, if somebody's going to give it to you as a gift, I definitely would take it. And I definitely, like I said, if you have extra money, which is not very common in nursing students, but if you do, I would go ahead and buy it. I do own this one. I worked in telemetry, so I was monitoring heart rates and rhythms and doing 12 lead EKGs. So cardiac was kind of, it is a little bit of a passion of mine. So I did really want the upgraded stethoscope. However, what I will say is this tubing, for whatever reason, is very sticky. So I do have my hair up when I'm at clinical, but if it's in a ponytail, you know, sometimes the tails are going to come down here, and it is noticeable, like it will catch on my hair. It's funny because I tested that because I had heard that was a problem before, and I tested it when I first bought it, and I didn't have that problem. It wasn't until I was doing clinicals, and I don't know if it's because you take it on and off so often, but it did end up driving me crazy. So what I would say is if you are going to go the cardiology route, I really do like the satin finish tubing. It's a little more expensive. They only have it for cardiology, I think, in black and white. The white is really pretty. I mean, the black is good too if that's what you like, but I do think the white is really pretty. But it is noticeable. The difference in the sound is noticeable. If you have the funds to get it, I absolutely would recommend it, but I would say it is a little bit heavier too. I would say probably lean towards the satin finish tubing because that has been prohibitive in me wearing it, honestly, and maybe I'm just wimpy, but regardless, I figure you should know. So I do like it. It's clearer, there's a lot less artifact. You don't hear your joints moving like when you hold the stethoscope on. If you're using a cheaper stethoscope, you can hear your joints creaking. You don't hear that with this or you hear it a lot less. I don't even think I hear it at all, but you hear it a lot less with this at the very least, because I'm not actually sure what the science behind that is. I think the tubing is thicker as part of it, but that's nice because you don't have a lot of artifact. You're not trying to filter out, okay, what is my fingers moving and what is actually the patient. I definitely think it is helpful for learning because it does help you develop that kind of, okay, I am listening to heart sounds, and I'm listening clearly to the heart sounds. I'm not hearing a bunch of artifact in the background. So I would never recommend against it. I would never recommend against it. If you have the money to do it, I would do it. I would stick with the satin tubing though, for me personally. That is actually why I ended up buying the Littmann 3, is because I wanted something that had the satin finish tubing, and I didn't want to go buy another cardiology. So like I said, I keep this in my bag, and I keep it on hand in case I do have a situation where I think that it would be helpful to have something it's a little clearer. It's also nice for blood pressures because it's easier to hear. So that is that one. So next I have the replacement one that I got to replace this issue with the tubing. So this is the satin finish tubing. It's, I think, rosé, champagne rose or champagne rosé or something. They only have 2 colors in this too for the Littmann Classic III. So this is Littmann Classic III. You can see how it hangs. It hangs a little bit differently maybe. So it has a little bit more flexibility, I guess, in it, and this one kind of holds its shape a little more. Probably part of that's from the thicker tubing, but it also has to do with the satin finish on this one. This one is very easy to put in your pocket. So I like this one a lot. The satin finish tubing prevents it from sticking to your clothes or to your hair, your clothing as well, but my problem is my hair. It's also supposed to be easier to clean. It is very clear. I don't have any problems hearing lung sounds. I don't have any problems hearing heart sounds. There's a little bit more joint involvement that you can hear, but it's not terrible. Like a lot of nurses only use this. So I would definitely say that this is a good option. Gosh, what else do I like about it? I mean, it is, you probably can't tell on the camera, but it is like, it does not stick to your hair at all. So if I was to do that with this one, I'd have little pieces of hair like twisted up around it. So yeah, they also say it's flexible and foldable. It's easy to put in your pocket. I don't know that that's much different than the other ones. I guess maybe. So next I have the MDF. This is the MDF, I believe it's the 777. Yep, the MDF 777 MD One. So this is their comparable stethoscope to the one I just showed you, almost said the Littmann III. And I do like this stethoscope. I have a couple issues with it though. So this is actually my first stethoscope. I was using this when I was doing vet tech work, and I ended up not being satisfied enough with it to even keep it. That's when I bought the cardiology. I mean, I kept it, but not as my nursing stethoscope. So the first problem is that it is heavier. And I believe when you look them up, it's supposed to be comparable in weight to the Littmann Cardiology, but you are also getting extra things with the Littmann Cardiology. It's a little bit clearer. And so the weight kind of balances out. You're getting benefits for the weight, whereas this one, I would say this one is a little bit clearer than the Littmann III for sure. I do think it actually is a little bit clearer to hear with than the Littmann III. So sound quality is a little bit better, but it is heavy. It actually does make my neck sore. The nice thing about them though is they have all of these different tubing colors. They are a little bit longer. So let's see. So here's the Littmann III. So as you can see, there's probably 2 inches extra of length. That's kind of nice because you don't have to, if you're a taller person, you're not going to have to bend over as much depending on what kind of situation you're in. It was nice for vet tech work because with the horses, you have to listen underneath. And so it was nice for that for sure. That probably adds to the weight. I also find these to not be very comfortable. So the hearing on this or the earpieces on this aren't the most comfortable. But I do think it's a good option. I think it is neat because they do have tons of different patterns. So let me compare these for you really quick. So that's the MDF 777 MD One. This is the Littmann III. So I still stand by that. I do think that the MDF is a little bit clearer, honestly. I just didn't end up loving the weight of it. It's definitely heavier. I'll probably look up the actual weights and put them down here for you guys so that you can see. But even just holding them, it's definitely heavier. I still think it's even heavier than the cardiology. So if you're a person that has a sensitive neck, maybe it's not going to be a good option for you. I also know they tell us not to wear our stethoscopes around our necks. A lot of people still do. You can get the little waistband things you can put in your pocket. So it's up to you. If the weight thing isn't going to be a big deal for you, I actually think that's a really good option. For me, the weight is a deal breaker, honestly. So then next, got like this piece of hair sticking out. I don't know why. This is the Littmann Classic, or no, sorry, not Littmann Classic. This is the Littmann Lightweight, and it is extremely lightweight. It's definitely noticeable. Like holding it after holding the MDF is crazy. That was the other thing I wanted to say about the MDF really quick. It doesn't have quite as nice of a tubing as the Littmann satin finish, but it is less sticky than the Littmann Cardiology like shiny finish tubing, which would be the same kind of tubing as the Littmann Classic III tubing. So I would shy away from the shiny tubing because that's another problem I've had. Okay, so this one also not super sticky, and I don't even think it's the satin finish. I just think it's the way that this one is made. This is around the $60 range, so it's cheaper. I also have seen a lot of nurses on the floor with these. It's comfortable. I like Littmann's earpieces. I think that they're comfortable, and you can hear with it. But what I'm going to say about this one, the bell is much quieter. What I will say, so it's still two-sided, because I know that that's something that is kind of tricky looking. You might not think it's two-sided because of the way that it's designed, but it is two-sided. It's nice because it's specifically designed to hold your fingers like that. So that's nice. I don't know why they don't do that with all of them. But I will say, if you're gonna go spend the $60, if you can, I probably wouldn't go with a Littmann Lightweight. And the reason is, it's another $40 and you can have the Littmann Classic III, and I do think that there's a noticeable difference. That one with the joint involvement is very obvious. If your fingers are moving a lot, it's very obvious. The Littmann Classic's a little less obvious than that, and then obviously the Cardiology is significantly less obvious than that. So the reason I say that is that one, cost-wise, is kind of in between this. This is the MDF. This is their cheapest version. So that's their Acoustica. So this is the MDF Acoustica. This is about $34, I believe. It depends on what colors you get, what combinations. MDF, again, definitely has lots of color combinations. They have these, the earpieces, the metal pieces in different colors. They have the tubing in different colors. They're great for accessorizing. And I would just say, instead of going, if you can't quite make the $100, I probably wouldn't do the Littmann Lightweight, because I feel like this one at $34, almost half the price of the Littmann Lightweight, is comparable. So I'm not really, I just don't see the benefit of doing that. So I think I would go either the MDF Acoustica if you don't quite have the $100, or I would go to an upgrade to the Littmann Classic III, because I do think this one's comparable. It's the only complaint that I have that I really don't like is if you look at the way that this one hangs, the tubing is definitely cheaper. It's not as good of quality. It looks like that when you put it on. It's got a little bit more of a it's just stiffer, I guess. It has a stiffness to it. So I don't love that about it, but if it's your first stethoscope, I think it's definitely sufficient if that's what you can afford. Obviously, you're going to be spending a lot of money on books and such. Personally, I still would go with the Littmann III, but like I said, if you don't have the funds to do that, this is completely acceptable. It's very clear. I'm going to check actually with the joint sounds on this one. Hang on. I know it looks weird, but I'm moving my fingers. So it's really not bad on that one. That's why I say this is actually a really decent stethoscope, especially for only being $34 or $35. I definitely would go this route over going the Littmann Lightweight if that's where you're at budget-wise. Let me see. Okay. Because this one, it transmits a lot more artifact. And I do feel like it might be even a little more muffled just acoustically. So I would skip this one. I really can't recommend this one for any reason, honestly, the Littmann Lightweight. Somebody else might have a different opinion than me, and that's completely fine. So I'm going to rank them really quick from my, if I was to talk to one of my friends, if they were going to go to nursing school here, this is what I would tell them. So the Littmann 3 probably is a pretty good route to go. I think that the satin tubing is great. I don't think I would ever buy another stethoscope without that kind of finish. Like I said, the shiny tubing just sticks to your hair so terribly, and I absolutely hate it. When you're taking it on and off multiple times, I don't like it. They also say that this satin finish is supposed to be easier to clean. I personally haven't really had any experience with that. I mean, obviously I clean it, but there's never been a time where I've been like, oh, this is harder to clean or easier to clean. So I would probably recommend, if my friend was asking, I would probably recommend Littmann 3, and I would say either, well, yeah, I would do one of the two satin finishes. So it comes in this color, and then it comes in that kind of not quite Tiffany blue. I feel like what they put in their picture isn't really representative of the color. The color is more dull. If you think about like this kind of color, it's pretty much this in a blue. That might not make sense, but it's not like a bright blue. Like, just like this is not a bright pink.
I just wanted to show you guys. So this is the marine blue Littmann 3 with the satin finish. So you can see, let me get it focused. It's not as shiny, but because of that, it doesn't catch on your hair. It's not sticky. It's hard to I'm going to do it on my other one, but I am returning this one. So the blue, but I wanted to give you guys this. The whole purpose of this is so that you guys can get an idea of the color. So on the pink one, that's the champagne satin finish, and then the blue is the marine blue. It's a really pretty color. I do like it a lot, but I will say it is not, in my opinion, it's not the same color as what they advertise. It's a little bit, I feel like it has a little more green in it than the one they advertise. The one they advertise, I feel like, is a lot closer to like a baby blue. But it's super pretty. I love it. I actually considered keeping this one over the pink one, but so that is that one for you guys.
So I would say that. Next, I probably, honestly, would go for the MDF Acoustica. Again, it's super cost affordable. There's lots of different colors. There's lots of different options. It does have the sticky tubing, so you are going to be going back to that, but you're also spending significantly less, almost, versus the satin tubing, you're spending almost $100 less. And I haven't heard of anybody complaining about this. So, well, actually, you can see even here, I did actually catch a little hair. So, but I haven't heard anybody else complain about the tubing issue with this particular one. I really do think the Littmann Cardiology is way stickier than this one. But I do think that this is a great option if you can't make it to the Littmann Classic. This will do everything that you need it to do, so that's great. Next, I mean, I do like I said, I do like the MDF 777 MD One, but it is heavy. I would recommend it if you are going to be putting it in your pocket a lot. If you're somebody that's committed to either wearing it on one of the clips or wearing it in your pocket, you'd probably do just fine. And like I said, I actually think the acoustic is a little bit better on this than it is on the Littmann Classic. It's just the weight is just a deal breaker for me, but they do have a lot of really cute patterns, and I love to see those. And the ears pieces I feel like are not quite as comfortable, so I would put this at probably in the third place. I wouldn't even mess with the Littmann Lightweight for reasons that I said before. And then the Cardiology, I go back to saying the same thing. If you can swing it, this is my number one for sure. This one is my number one. If it was in the satin tubing, I never would have gotten the Littmann 3, but I just couldn't stand the constant the constant hair pulling that this one causes. I did look into like covering it and getting a stethoscope cover, but then with infection control, I just don't feel like that's adequate. I just don't feel like it's a good idea. If you could spend the money, this one definitely is my number one. But I understand not everybody has that kind of money, especially going into nursing school. You're already spending so much on your books and your tuition and everything. But I mean, this is great. As long as you do the satin finish, I think that this would have been absolutely my favorite. I'm kind of bummed that they don't have different color options because I don't really love the black stethoscopes. I do like the white one. The white one is pretty, but that's not, at that point in time, I was like, oh, I want the pink one. So here we are with pink one that I'm not going to wear really. So we will see. I also want to show you the comparison between the heads. So this is the Littmann Classic III. This is the Cardiology. Obviously, you can see the Cardiology is quite a bit bigger. That's why the sound's a little bit better. Well, quite a bit better. That's why the sound's better. And then, if you can see there, the tubing is also quite a bit thicker. Then if we take the MDF One, they're pretty close to comparable. Maybe the MDF One is a little bit wider, but not significantly. So that is how I would recommend them. So I rank the Cardiology definitely is at the top, but I also am aware that not everybody is in that kind of financial position. So I think the Littmann 3 is a great option below that. And then the MDF Acoustica would come below that. The MDF 777, I guess if you're okay with the weight, that one's good too. Another thing I wanted to touch on really quick is I've heard a lot about people not spending a lot of money on their stethoscope. So if you don't have the money, that's one thing. If you have the money, it is something that you're going to be using for the rest of your career. I do think it's important to be able to learn the sounds in nursing school and be able to hear them. I would not go with the cheapest stethoscope that you can find because there are some for $10, and I just don't think that that's doing yourself a favor in the long run. That's also coming from me and my cardiac background. So the other thing that I hear a lot is like, oh, well, your stethoscope's gonna get stolen. I don't really see, maybe I'm just naive, I don't see how that's a possibility. I don't leave mine laying around. It's either around my neck or it's in the little holster thing or in my pocket. So if somebody's coming up and taking it off of me, okay, I guess maybe like that's the only way I can really see that happening. Even when you're working, I don't know. Yeah, I just don't think that that's, watch your stuff, I guess. Keep your stuff with you, and that's not going to happen. I don't think that's a reason that you shouldn't spend money on your stethoscope. Nobody's going to walk up to you and take it away from you, if you know what I mean. I have heard times where people lend it out, and then a doctor accidentally walks away with it. That's a little bit different. I guess be aware that that could happen. But again, I just don't feel like that's a reason to not buy a decent stethoscope. So